With weather like this, it's no wonder people come out to enjoy the mountain parks, and hiking's a great way to do it. During this program, we'll talk about hiking, trail safety, and tips on how you can make the most of your outdoor experience. So, let's get started. Welcome, Jeff Spellman, one of the city's park rangers.
Hello.
Now tell me, there seems to be so many mountain parks in the valley. How much land does it cover?
The Phoenix Mountain Preserves are over 26,500 acres. South Mountain Park alone is the world's largest city park. In our mountain parks, we have almost 200 miles of multi-purpose trails, hiking, biking, horseback riding trails.
Now, we're here at Squaw Peak, and that's obviously one of the most popular parks that we have here in the valley. Tell me a little bit about what the attraction is.
We're at Squaw Peak Park on the Summit Trail, and this 1.2 mile long trail, we have over 500,000 people a year that hike this trail.
Do you think is it primarily because they're coming to get a good workout?
A lot of people come for the daily exercise routine. The views are also spectacular from up on top, and it's very close. It's close to home, very easily accessible to a lot of people. They can get here in a short period of time. We do have developed picnic sites in the mountain parks, and we also have a whole host of other trails for hiking and biking.
If people want to get information from the park rangers on the park and on the trails, can they do that?
You bet. The park rangers can provide you with maps of the designated trails. Just ask any one of the park rangers when you come into the park, or you can call us beforehand by calling the Phoenix Parks Recreation and Library Department. A
little bit later in the show, too, we'll be talking about other resources, other places to get some of these things, because it's really important, as we've been talking, to prepare for your hiking. Tell me what some of the hazards are at Squaw Peak and what people kind of need to prepare themselves for when they come here.
On these mountain parks, the trails are steep and rocky. You'll know that if you read the information on the trailhead signs, and that in and of itself creates some danger for people going up and down the trails. The trails are not paved, and you have to use some care and some common sense.
Okay. Now, are there some particular do's and don'ts that people need to know when they come to the park, to the Summit Trail?
Probably the three big things that will get you into trouble when you're hiking on the trails is, number one, if you get off the trail. The trails are maintained to a certain standard, and therefore your safety. Don't run downhill. That's the other thing. If you run downhill, it's hard to stop that momentum. It's easy to trip and fall. The rocks are sharp. The rocks are very unforgiving. You can suffer some serious injuries from them. And the last thing is just knowing your limitations and not exceeding them. Find out, don't come here to Squaw Peak Park with the intent that you're going to go all the way up to the top of the mountain the first time you've ever been hiking, because you're probably not going to be able to do it.
Well, that's good advice. Now, I see a lot of people with children and infants. Are there certain precautions that you take with children to make it a safer, trip?
You have to take even extra precaution for your children. The young children that can walk on their own pretty safely, you need to look out for them. You need to make sure that they are extra protected from the sun, that they wear a hat, they wear the right clothing, the right shoes, that you have water for them, that you encourage them to drink that water while they're hiking. You really just have to take those extra precautions that you take for yourself too, but just make sure that your kids are doing those things.
And what about infants? I often see people carrying their infants.
Yeah, one of the most dangerous things that you can do up here is put your infant in your arms or put them on your shoulders and try to carry them up the mountain, because that's just an accident waiting to happen. You really need to use, if you're going to bring an infant hiking, you really need to invest in a good quality pack that you can secure them onto your back.
Okay, good. Now, talking about accidents waiting to happen, are there snakes here really close to the trail? It's a very, very busy trail, and with all the commotion, do snakes and other poisonous creatures really come close?
They sure do, and what we have to remember about the poisonous critters is that this is their home. They live here, we are visiting, and we have to look out for them. It's not something that you really have to be alarmed about or overly worried about, you just need to keep your eyes and ears open. Don't put your hands or feet anywhere that you can't see, and keep that in mind. Keep your distance. If you happen to see a snake, consider yourself lucky. A lot of people don't. Most people don't. In fact, many people walk right on by them and never even know that they're there. But if you do happen to see one, look at it from a distance, give it some space, and go on around and enjoy the rest of your hike.
Great. So really preparing for your hike can greatly reduce the injuries that can happen on the trail. So right now we're going to go ahead and talk to somebody who's an expert in the field. Paul Reinshagen from the Arizona Hiking Shack. Welcome.
Hi.
Listen, how important is it to wear the proper clothing and to have the right equipment when you're doing outdoor activities?
Well, it's always important to be prepared. You always want to make sure that the equipment you have is what you need. It's always good to have a good overview of where you're going to go and what terrain you're going to be covering. There's all sorts of guides that are available that show various trails in Arizona. It's always good to have a good idea of where you're going first off.
Now, is there a big variety in what to wear for what sport? I notice a lot of people here at Squaw Peak hiking in aerobic clothes and maybe tennis shoes or thongs, that kind of stuff. I know we'll get to the shoe wear in a little bit, but what's the main point in exercise clothing?
Basically, it's to keep yourself cool. It's also to keep the sun off you. A lot of clothing are designed to give you protection against the UV rays, so it's always good to have the right clothing.
Good. Okay, why don't you go down the line here and tell me what we have and how best to prepare for these outdoor activities.
Okay, well, first of all, you want to have a really good pair of shoes. Shoes are vitally important, and all too many people hike in sneakers and end up injuring their ankles, hurting their knees. So you want to get a shoe that's got plenty of ankle support. It goes up a little bit above the ankle to take some of the torque from the twists that you'll run into, and a good stout lug to give you traction on the loose terrain.
What about tennis shoes? Is it good to wear tennis shoes if they have traction? Or?
Not necessarily. The rubber's not made of the same compounds that are made for hiking boots. They're a little slicker. They also don't provide the ankle support that's necessary for hiking on rough terrain.
Okay, and is there something special about these socks you brought?
Well, these are synthetic socks. These actually help prevent blisters from occurring. The biggest mistake that people make is wearing cotton socks.
Okay.
Prevents it. It actually promotes blisters. It keeps the moisture next to your skin.
You always think about cotton being able to breathe, so you would think that would be the logical choice for that.
No, it's not. You want to go with synthetic.
Okay, great.
Definitely. Then I also brought along some hats. Sun protection is really important to keep your body temperature down. One with a good brim. There are plenty of hats that give you some neck protection from the sun. And then we also have some full brim hats here too, which definitely keep you nice and cool on a hot day.
Visors, anything really just to kind of, keep the sun
the heat
out.
off, exactly.
Okay. Sunblock, big thing.
Definitely. The thicker, the muddier, the better.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is, you want to go with something that's waterproof, only because when it's really hot out, you put out a lot of sweat that washes a lot of that sunscreen off. And
what about the SPF? Does it really matter how high your SPF goes?
I've heard that it stops at around 30. Anything higher than that's kind of mundane, but I always go with the thickest stuff out there.
Okay.
A good 43 will keep you nice and
okay, great.
Nice
and what do we have here in these little bags?
These are first aid kits, actually. It's always good to carry a small one along with you. You never know what you're going to run into out on the trail. It's nice to have some Band-Aids and some antiseptic to take care of the casual scratches and stuff you might.
And those could also be carried in your fanny packs that you're going to show us next.
Yep, that's right.
Tell me about this variety that you have here.
Well, there's a whole bunch of different ways of carrying the equipment you want to bring with you while you're hiking. The biggest concern is having something that's going to be able to carry your water. In the desert, when you're out for a day hike, it's always good to at least bring along, in one 24-hour period, a human being goes through about a gallon of water. So use that to kind of figure out how much you need to carry along with you. There are fanny packs that have a couple of water bottles on the side, a little bit of room on the inside to put your belongings, some food, maybe some rainwear.
And free up your hands so you don't, if you have to fall, you're okay with that.
Exactly. Very good point.
Okay.
The latest rage these days are carrying packs that have bladders in them.
That's what I want. This looks easy.
Yeah.
Now, is that straps on your back? And it's...
No, this actually is carried as a lumbar pack.
Okay.
And it contains a bladder with a hose on the inside. The hose attaches to the buckle on the front, so you don't have to stop to find your water bottles. You just kind kind of bite on the bite valve and you've got water.
I've seen those. Those look really fun, really easy way to travel.
Well, they've got them that are designed to be carried around your waist. They also have them that are kind of a shoulder pack with some shoulder straps, plenty of water.
Great.
These things are really good to have along with you, make it convenient.
Great, that's wonderful. And I'm noticing, I know that we talked a little bit earlier about how important it is to travel with infants, to have them secure in a backpack, and this looks like this is going to do it.
Yeah, this is a child carrier by Kelty. This is designed to carry a child anywhere from early infancy up to about 40 pounds.
Wow.
It's designed to be really adjusted to the person carrying the pack because they have to bear the brunt of the load. It comes with a sunscreen and a rain screen, no windshield wipers though.
So it distributes weight pretty evenly, and so if you fell, at least the child would be protected.
Yeah, it would be somewhat protected by the fact that it's in there nice and snug, and there's lots of padding all the way around the pack.
Now, what about rock climbing? How do you prepare for that, or is it even allowed in the park?
Well, rock climbing is a very technical sport. I always suggest that you seek the help of a professional guide before you begin any rock climbing excursion. As far as climbing in the park, it's not recommended. The rock is not the best quality to climb on. Very injury-prone stuff.
Okay, well, we want to stay away from injury-prone things.
Exactly.
And so probably the thing I'm hearing most from you is to try to stay cool. And that's not always easy when you're dealing with a lot of hikers who enjoy hiking year-round. Heat exhaustion can be a real problem. So let's go talk to the Phoenix Fire Department to find out how we can prevent this. Welcome, Chris Ketterer, the Phoenix Fire Department's Technical Rescue Team. Now, you know firsthand just how dangerous these mountains can be. Why don't you tell us about that?
They're very dangerous. There's a lot of inherent dangers on the mountain, from lost trails, trail blazing, if you will, opportunities where people get themselves into situations where they're not prepared, they're not properly hydrated, they don't have the proper clothing, the proper footwear. Some of the rock surface breaks away and we tend to lose someone that way due to lost footing. So there's a lot of inherent problems on the mountain.
We can see right behind us a real sheer cliffs too. Do you have a problem with people maybe who aren't very experienced trying to rock climb and falling?
Sometimes we do. As an example, we see more of these types of incidents at Papago Park, where we have a lot of smooth, rolling type hills and mountains. They're more easily up-climbed than down-climbed, so people will climb themselves into bad positions and then don't have the skill or the wherewithal to get back down. And oftentimes they're really sitting on a perch, not necessarily in peril, but can't exit the mountain, and then it's a responsibility of the technical rescue team to make access, find anchors, throw ropes, gain access to the patient, protect them, and then bring them down the mountain. It tends to be a really involved process. And on a much higher degree, we use helicopters often. The terrain doesn't allow us, in a timely manner, in a person who may be seriously injured or hurt, to get to them and then get them down the mountain with traditional means. So we'll resort to a helicopter.
Now, if somebody is injured on the trail, is there something that people need to do? I mean, do they need to notice where they are or really find out about the injuries? Tell me what's the main thing that people need to do when they call in an injury.
It's important to, one, start the system as fast as possible. Get on the phone, dial 911, know your location as best as possible. On most of the mountain ranges in the city, they're well marked. They're all marked from the trailhead up to the summit and at quarter-mile increments. So if you can direct us in relation to one of those markers, that would be great. If you don't know that location, some other landmarks, a particular tree. Around here we have, the Park Service has been able to erect some benches in dedication of some posts. So those landmarks help us.
Now another main problem here that we talked about earlier is heat exhaustion.
Definitely.
What are some of the signs for heat exhaustion?
Heat exhaustion specifically is the blood chemistry, if you will, is becoming out of balance. Signs and symptoms relating to heat exhaustion are dizziness, profuse sweating, confusion, muscle cramping, nausea. These types of symptoms all play into that. An extreme case of that actually leads into a condition called heat stroke. And that's simply put, the body's ability to cool itself is now no longer effective. and the patient's core temperature, the patient's temperature is on the rise.
Very dangerous.
That is very dangerous and life-threatening, and if we don't get to those people and give them fluids and immediately start some aggressive cooling on them, oftentimes they'll die.
Now, do you have, I mean, if somebody is feeling themselves get overheated, is there something that they can do to try to prevent that?
Sure, and again, is one preferably not allowing yourself to get in that position initially. So know your limitations, always hydrate before, during, and after. But if you find yourself caught in a situation where you think that you're really starting to get sick or not feel well, get into some shade, notify someone, obtain water. If you don't have your own water, obtain water from passersby, drink some water if you're not nauseous, and just wait for help.
If you see a snake, and if you're bitten by a snake, what do?
We don't recommend anymore the old cut and suck where you actually lacerated the wound and tended to aspirate out the venom. That's really not effective. So remain calm, notify the help, and we'll get the proper drugs and treatment to use.
Thanks, Chris. You know, although it may be really tempting to venture off the trail, it can be harmful to the hiker and also to the environment. Jeff, tell me what we're looking at here.
This is some erosion on a switchback on the Squaw Peak Summit Trail. It's a real problem on busy mountain trails like this, especially ones that have a lot of switchbacks. When the trail gets real busy and traffic gets backed up, a lot of times people try to shortcut to get around a slow hiker, and this is the result right here. The soil is very, very loose, very fragile, and after a few people get on it, loosens up the rocks in the soil, and pretty soon Mother Nature takes over and the rains come, and then we have a huge scar like this on the mountain that takes many, many, many years to recover.
It's also really loose too, so very dangerous for hikers.
Very dangerous
to
to get off of the trail.
Okay,
yes.
Tell me about this. What was this? Is this wall always been here?
Yeah, several years ago we did some restoration on the Squaw Peak Summit Trail, and one of our biggest problems was stabilizing the switchbacks on the trail and trying to maintain the trail in a given position, as well as try to encourage people to stay on the trail. And this is one of the devices that's worked actually quite well up here. The construction of this rock wall is actually very difficult for people to climb over it, so they're more likely to stay on the trail, which was one of our goals in the restoration project, was to keep people on the trail.
Okay, great. Well, you know, there's also some erosion and some restoration happening down at Apache Trail. Let's go take a look. We're here at Apache Trail at the other end of Squaw Peak, where there's trails I didn't even know about. Jeff, why don't you tell me about these?
Right. Everybody knows about the popular Squaw Peak Summit Trail, but there are so many other trail opportunities in the Phoenix Mountain Parks. We have everything from paved bikeways to barrier-free trails to nature trails to where we're at today, right now, at the Squaw Peak Park at the Apache Trailhead, where we have the Squaw Peak Nature Trail and the Circumference Trail.
Okay, now the nature trail, is that maybe for somebody who's a little bit less aerobic and they want to go out and just enjoy nature, maybe take their dog or their children, something like that?
It's a great place. It's a good place to get started if you're looking for something a little less aggressive. Plus, if you just want to enjoy nature, you can get back on the Squaw Peak Nature Trail, and sometimes you won't see anybody at all, and you can get back into some of the most beautiful areas of the mountain preserve, where you kind of lose yourself back in there.
Sounds wonderful. How far is that hike?
The nature trail is only 1 4/10 miles, and there are a couple of passes that you climb over, but it's relatively level.
Okay, and the circumference, where does that go?
The Circumference Trail goes all the way around the base of Squaw Peak and actually climbs halfway up the backside of the mountain and meets the Summit Trail at the halfway point. So even though it doesn't go to the top of any mountains, because that trail's a little longer, it's 3.9 miles, and there are a couple passes to climb, it's a rather difficult climb also.
So it's a good midway climb.
Sure, you bet.
There's obviously been a lot of wear and tear on the terrain. That's probably why this fence has been put here.
Right. The problem that we have at a lot of the trailheads is this is where people come in to access the trails. And a big problem we have is when people come in, a lot of times they just get out of their cars and walk up the side of the mountain. And it's created a situation here where there's truly a spider web of trails everywhere, to the point where people really can't even find the real trail. So in situations like this where it's gotten so out of hand, we've had to go in and take drastic measures like put fencing up, put signs up, really try to redirect people onto the main trail and then take measures to try to restore some of the areas that have been damaged by people walking everywhere.
Good. Where, you know, I see these close signs here and also throughout the park too. Is there a fine if people disregard them and go into these areas anyway?
There really is. The law is actually a criminal violation, and what it means is if you happen to get cited for it, it means a trip to court. You have to see the judge. And it's really, it's entirely up to the judge, but there is a minimum of a $50 fine and 8 hours of community service. So if you get caught by one of the park rangers out here violating the law, intentionally going into one of these areas that we've got closed or that we're trying to restore, and you intentionally go into those areas, you're going to find yourself ending up with a citation. And then for your 8 hours of community service, you're going to be back out here fixing and repairing some of these areas alongside of us.
Oh boy, so you better be really ready to work, huh?
Right.
Okay, that takes us to another really important area, and that is safety and security here at the park. What ways can we protect our valuables and ourselves?
Right. Personal safety and security of your vehicles is an important item when you come to the park to use the trails. We always recommend hiking, doing the trail with a partner. It's not only increases your personal safety, but it's fun. It really is. And should you have a problem out on the trail, then there's someone else that can help you, or that they can go back and get help and bring the help out to you.
And what about valuables in your car?
That really is, unfortunately, a big problem that we have at trailheads. A lot of times, the bad guys know that the people are going to come to the trails and that they're not going to want to carry their purses and wallets with them, and that they'll leave those valuables in the cars. And so these vehicles at trailheads end up being targets for people who will come and look and see if they see something that looks like there might be something of valuable in the car. They'll break a window and they'll just take it. So that's one of those things that you can prevent by, number one, leaving your valuables at home. And if you absolutely have to bring those things with you, make sure that you lock them up in the trunk or lock them out of sight before you ever even get to the park. That's the safest thing.
Okay, that's great advice. Getting back to the trail, it looks like a perfect place to walk your dog. We're here with Kim Hicks from the Arizona Humane Society and her dog Bambi. Welcome, you guys. Tell us how to go ahead and get ready for your hiking adventure.
Well, the first thing you need to keep in mind, Sherry, is that before you take your dog out on a hike, your dog needs to be in shape. You have to make sure your dog is going to be able to hike on a trail or up the side of a mountain. So you do want to take a few walks around your neighborhood first and gradually, just like a person, get your dog in shape.
Okay, it's also really important to know before you do go on these hikes that, you know, not all parks allow dogs, so it's really important to know that too.
That's right. Even here at Squaw Peak, there are some trails where dogs are not permitted, so you do need to maybe visit the park in advance or give them a call and find out exactly where your dog is going to be allowed. And then once you do hit the trail, remember, you want to keep your dog on a sturdy leash at all times. And this is really important for several reasons. Number one, it's going to protect other hikers from your dog. Another thing you want to keep in mind is your dog could, in an unfamiliar setting, run away. And once your dog gets off the trail, there are a lot of dangers out there. For example, he could run into cactus, he could run into a rattlesnake, he might even have an encounter with a javelina or a coyote. And something else right here in the valley that we have a big problem with are these. And these are foxtails. These are very dangerous to our pets, and of course we found these right along the trail here in Squaw Peak. Very sharp, very brittle, and they can actually get into your pet's fur, into their paws, and work their way through the tissue into their body. Very dangerous to our pets.
Very painful too. Oh my. Yeah, so a lot of things to look out for. Now also, in hiking in the summer months, is there certain preparations that you need to do for your dogs?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, in the summer, in the spring, and even in the fall here in the valley, I wouldn't recommend that you take a hike in the middle of the day. You want to get on the trail before sun up or late in the evening. And then, of course, when you are hiking, you want to make sure you have plenty of water. Your dog is going to need water before you hike, while you're hiking, and after you hike. Now, we brought along this water bowl, which is fantastic for your day trip because you can either scrunch it up.
That's great.
And it fits right into a fanny pack. It also has a loop right here, so I can go ahead and put this on my belt and carry it with me.
How
and
handy.
then, when Bambi needs a drink of water, we can go ahead and get it out and fill it up
That's
for her.
wonderful. And these things are available, that you're going to be showing us, are available at pet stores, so they're readily available.
That's right. You can find them at just about any pet supply store or at the Arizona Humane Society.
Good. And so it's important to make sure that your dog has the water before the hike and during and after, because again, they don't have the same cooling system that we have.
No, they don't. As you can see, Bambi's panting right now, and that's how she cools herself off. But remember, she's got this fur coat on, and while this does protect her from sunburn, it also is pretty warm. Imagine what it would be like hiking up the trail wearing a fur coat.
Sure.
And also, when it comes to heat, you need to keep in mind that our dogs can suffer from heat exhaustion. They're not like their coyote cousins who have learned to adapt to our heat. There are a few things you want to watch out for. Number one, excessive panting and salivation. Now, Bambi is panting here, but she's not panting too excessively that we need to be worried. However, very soon we're going to want to get her into the shade. Something else to watch out for is a glazed over look in her eye. She may become lethargic, or she may become very agitated and might actually exhibit unpredictable behavior, growling, snapping at people. Something else, if you are concerned about your dog, is you want to look at her gums. If she has a whitish blue tint to her gums, that means she's suffering from heat exhaustion. We need to stop, we need to get her in the shade, and we need to cool her down right away. Unfortunately, at the Arizona Humane Society, our officers wind up rescuing dogs from the sides of mountains and from trails every summer.
That's sad. So if you are up the trail, and even though you have water or something, and you start seeing these signs, the best just to stop and maybe just carry the dog down if you need to.
That's right. First thing I would do is get her into the shade. I would wet her down with cool water, not cold water, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on her underside, on her groin, and give her small amounts of water to drink initially until she starts to come around. Then I want to completely hydrate her and get her to my veterinarian.
Okay, and it's also really important to notice the age of the dog. I mean, Bambi is 8 years old, so it's a little bit older. You need to keep that in mind too.
She is 8 years old, and as you can see, she's a little bit overweight. So a dog like this isn't going to be
perfect.
She's not going to be quite as hardy on the trail as maybe some of the younger dogs, and maybe a dog that's in a little bit better shape. And small dogs versus large dogs, another consideration.
Oh, she loves you. Now you have some toys over here that are kind of fun that I didn't know that even existed. Why don't you tell me about these?
This right here is a product called Cool Paws. There's also a product called Tough Paws. And these are wonderful for our pets' paws when we're hiking or even when we're out walking on the hot asphalt. You can go ahead, they have a little Velcro strap, put that right on your dog's foot, secure it, and it's going to protect her foot from the rocks on the trail. It's also going to help to keep her paws nice and cool.
Yeah, because they get awfully hot out there too, and they'd be very stylish out there with their little shoes on.
They certainly would. And you know, that's another thing to keep in mind, another reason why we want to get our dog in shape by taking her on a few walks around the neighborhood before we hit the trail, because her pads may be very tender and the rocks on the trail could actually cut or bruise her pads, and that's going to be very painful.
Okay, and then also you have an identifier, a leash, and it's always probably very, very recommended to have that on your dog.
We recommend that you always have identification on your dog, current ID, but also more so when you're on an outing, because if Bambi was to get up and run away and run off of the trail, we want to make sure if somebody finds her, they're going to be able to return her to us quickly.
Okay.
And one other thing I brought along, which is very important.
Being a responsible pet owner, that's very important.
This is the dispose of scoop, and of course a lot of the trails, such as Squaw Peak here, where dogs are allowed, do provide little baggies for our dogs. We want to be courteous to other hikers. We want to make sure we pick up after our dogs, because you know, these trails are beautiful. They're for all of us to enjoy, and if we get into a situation where people aren't cleaning up after their pets, we may not be able to bring our pets any longer. So we do want to be courteous to other folks and make sure we keep the trails clear.
Girl. We've been talking about hiking, but there's also mountain biking and horseback riding available at the parks. Let's go over to South Mountain Park to check it out. We're here at South Mountain Park with Lisa Quinones, or as people around here know her, Ranger Lisa. Welcome. Tell me a little bit about South Mountain Park.
South Mountain Park is 16,500 acres of a vast Sonoran desert environment.
Wow.
We have over 60 miles worth of trails here.
That's great. Now how old is the desert? Is that a reasonable question?
That's a pretty reasonable question. It's about 1.7 billion years on the very west side.
Amazing, amazing. Now, tell me about the variety of activities that people can do here at South Mountain.
Well, we have 60 miles worth of trails and they're multiple usage, which means we can have horseback, mountain bike riding, hiking, walking, bird walks, just actually enjoying the actual areas, as well as picnic places and an environmental education center to come visit.
We're going to hit that a little bit later. Now, at South Mountain Park, is there like a wide range of difficulty from you know, just a beginning hiker to somebody maybe who's very advanced?
We actually have a nature trail where you can take preschoolers on, and that's
great.
like maybe an eighth of a mile down to the national trail, which goes across the whole entire mountain system, and a bunch of different trails that access onto that. We actually have 19 trails on the state trail system, from easy to moderate to very, very hard.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know, South Mountain Park seems to be a hiker's paradise, but that's not the only way to get around. Park Ranger Bob Burnett, welcome.
Hi, Sherry. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. Now, who's your partner here?
This is my partner, Tex, and he's American Quarter Horse, and he's 17 years old.
Oh, great. Now, South Mountain Park, it's a wonderful place for people to bring their horses. How do you need to prepare for horseback riding here at the park?
Well, horseback riding is no different than it is for hikers or bicycles alike. You have to learn your equipment, prepare yourself. You have to learn trail etiquette, rules of the road. You have to get the proper training, get yourself in condition. Don't hike, bike, or ride your horse beyond your capabilities or the horse's capabilities. Remember, you're on a horse. Sometimes things happen where a bicycle or you're hiking, you have totally control. Stay on the trails and bring your equipment. There's a lot of equipment you should bring, the same as everybody when you're on the trail.
Why don't you show us some of the equipment?
Okay, first of all, the lifeblood is water. Water, water, water. There's water at trailheads, there's water at our equestrian area. I carry extra water on the trails. I carry 3 bottles, 2 frozen in the saddlebags. Tex is trained to drink out of them.
Great.
I carry a cell phone, and this is something that bicyclists and hikers should do. Plus, we also have the radio. We're connected up with paramedics and the police department. Couple of things that you could do besides more water. I have Tex's spare tire, which is an easy boot, and it's just like a bicycle if you have to pump it up and patch it. If he loses a shoe, I put this on it and it replaces it. One of the most important things when you're out here in the desert for anybody is a comb.
Sure.
And a comb is if you get off trail or if you happen to get stuck by cactus, you use a comb and you pull the cactus off of the horse's legs, off of the horse, off of your arm, off of the body, and you don't get it stuck in your fingers.
That's something that you wouldn't really think about bringing.
Really, exactly. And since horses are unique, since they can't breathe through their mouth, and they get inquisitive once in a while, and they stick their nose in a bush, and there happens to be a rattlesnake, and their nose swells up, they can't breathe. So what we do is help them. We have little hoses we stick up through their nostrils. It maintains an open airway, and we don't lose our horse.
Great. Now, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
We also have Vet Wrap, which is just an adhesive, self-adhering bandage, along with our first aid kit, which we have for people, bicycles, hikers, and horses alike. And we can put bandages on, and you don't need any tape because this adheres to itself.
Great.
And like I say, and the most important thing is maps. Know where you're going, learn the trails, and then enjoy. And these are multi-purpose trails, and it's really a thing to see out here. All the bicycles and the hikers and the horsemen out here together. It's great.
Now, on these multi-purpose trails, who has the right-of-way?
Okay, on the trails, the horses have the right-of-way. The hiker has control of himself, the rider has control of the bicycle. We have control of the horse if they're in their proper state of training. However, since they are a living thing and they are so powerful, things can happen. And it's up to the horsemen to make sure their horse is in a state of training. So bicycles yield to everybody, hikers yield to horses, so horses have the right-of-way.
There's some beautiful vegetation here at the park. Is there some things that you need to stay away from with your horse?
Of course there is. There is in your own backyard, but mainly you want to stay, if you stay on the trails, you're generally okay. But cactus, the cholla, the jumping cholla, they're terrible. Foxtails, which affect humans and animals, dogs, foxtails will get under the skin, they'll get in their ears and really create a problem which causes an operation. We also have globe mallow in the park, which if a horse is allowed to ingest it, they will get kidney and liver failure and they can die very suddenly. And also if a human touches the globe mallow, and they touch their eyes, they'll get the worst case of pink eye they ever got in their life. So
Oh,
there's
boy.
just things you have to know, and that's all becoming familiar with the area that you're going to recreate, and that's all a part of growing up and learning.
Now, hikers and people really on bikes and horses too can kind of stay on the trail, but also see some of our ancient history here. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, it's amazing. In the park here, we have about 400 locations with about 2,000 Hohokam petroglyphs. They date back up maybe to 1,500 to 2,500 years, and they're right there for the touching. You can touch a piece of history. It's just amazing.
Oh, that's great. Now, if you don't own a horse, are there stables here at the park where you can get a horse and go horseback riding?
Yes, there are. There are 4 stables. There's one in the east end of the mountain, and there's 3 in the main part of the park that are commercial. And you're able to go out for a fee for as many hours as you want with a wrangler that goes with you to take you on the trail.
So if you're not experienced, you can still
They have a
enjoy
horse for
this.
everybody.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Tex, for being with us. You know, while horses have been sharing the trail for thousands of years, today mountain bikers are a big part of that trail. Ranger Manny Morales is here to tell us how to have a safe ride. Welcome, Manny.
Hello, Sherry. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Listen, if people want to come to the park and they're looking for something specific in a bike, is there something that they should look for?
Yes, there is. Matter of fact, we recommend a good, sturdy mountain bike, one with the good, sturdy tires, good shocks, handlebars as well. They have to be good and well maintained, and also the bike should be in good working order.
Okay, so there is a difference between your regular standard bike that you use out in the streets and this.
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, are there other preparations that you need to do when you come out mountain biking?
Yes, I would recommend that individuals who decide to come out mountain biking that they bring plenty of water.
Okay.
At least 2 water bottles, maybe even a camelback like the one I have on back of me, which holds about 2 liters of water.
Those are handy.
And also make sure your bike has either a toolkit, maybe a patch kit.
Okay,
First aid kit is always good.
good. Air hose, things like that, if you maybe
air
blow a
pump
tire.
as well, right.
Okay, and wearing the right equipment or the right clothing is very important too. You
Yes.
want to stay cool. Is there anything recommended for that?
Exactly. Well, we recommend shorts, jersey top, maybe a good helmet, gloves,
Yes,
and
helmets
also
are very
if you're
important.
exactly. Also, if you're a beginner, maybe we recommend as far as elbow pads and knee pads as well.
Knee pads, yeah. And I noticed that you have sunblock here. We've talked over and over
Right,
about how
exactly.
important that
Right,
is.
It's very important out here.
Okay.
But also water is the main thing.
Now, do people come out to the park with different intentions as far as mountain biking?
Some come out to recreate, and some, the more advanced bicyclists, is more into more technical ride. They're in for endurance, they're the timing, so they kind of tend to go down the mountains a little faster than others. And we recommend that they maybe just slow down a little bit and just use caution. You never know who's going to be coming around a particular turn.
Good. So it's definitely for their safety and also
Exactly
for other
right.
people who are sharing the trail too.
Right.
If you do have an accident, what should you do if you fall off your bike?
What if you happen to sustain an injury or an accident of some sort where you fall off the bike, and recommend that maybe there's quite a few people that pass by. We recommend maybe you flag one of them down, and they can either call 911 if they have a cell phone, or you have someone down to the gatehouse. We have a public phone there, and you call Ranger Dispatch, which is our cells, also fire department, depending on the severity of the particular injury.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Manny, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, hiking, horseback riding, and mountain biking are all very much a part of South Mountain Park, but now visitors are in for a special treat. The new South Mountain Education Center is filled with information on plants, wildlife, ancient history, and much more. And Ranger Lisa is back to tell us about it. What do you have here at the center?
We have all kinds of things that talk about the Sonoran Desert environment. We have like relief maps, we have interactive computers, different displays on the ancient part of the mountain, as well as the Civilian Conservation Corps. We talk a lot about the wildlife here in the preserve.
Okay, I want to talk to you about that. We've been talking about hikers and mountain bikers and horses and everything and how they go out. What can people experience out in these mountain preserves? What type of wildlife can they see?
If you come early in the morning or late in the afternoon, you're going to see the smaller rodents, hopefully like a cottontail, jackrabbit, squirrels, all kinds of bird life. More than likely, you're not going to see a snake. We make too much noise to see that, but we do have them here. We have javelinas. We have ringtails, but those are nocturnal, so more than likely that's not something you'll see.
Okay.
But mostly smaller animals and birds.
Great. You also offer a lot of classes here at the center.
Yeah, we do. As a matter of fact, in the fall we'll be having our Walking Wonders program, which is ranger-led hikes throughout different trails in South Mountain Preserve.
Great. And do the classes, I mean, does it go all the way from preschool up to adults?
We hit all age levels and all abilities, and that happens year-round, so just give us a call and find out what we're offering at what time.
You also have lots of maps here, and we've been talking about how important that is for hiking to prepare yourself. So let's go ahead and look at your display that you have for maps. Okay?
Sounds good. We have a wide variety of resources and information.
It looks great. Now, the city also works very closely with the Public Lands Information Center, and we have Joanna Scruggs here. Joanna, tell me about your facility.
Thank you very much. The Arizona Public Lands Information Center is a partnership between the Bureau of Land Management and the Public Lands Interpretive Association. We carry a large variety of information on all public lands in Arizona, regardless of whether it's federally or state managed. We have a lot of information on the county park system, and of course we're very pleased with our relationship with the City of Phoenix Park System.
You are working closely with the city, which is great. I understand
Yes.
you had a lot of calls from people saying where they can go to park within the city, or go to hike within the city.
We do. We get a lot of calls, and it's always amazing to me the number of people that aren't aware of the fine facilities right in their own backyard, and we're very pleased to be able to assist in that education.
Good. And what types of information can they get from the Public Lands Information Center?
We carry books, maps, guidebooks. We have a lot of brochures on visitor safety, on preparing before they take a hike, on desert survival, all sorts of information about sensibly recreating on the public lands.
Good. And also, does it cover like the county?
Yes, it does. We
Okay.
have county maps and county guidebooks, a lot of information on national parks, Forest Service, campgrounds. We get a lot of calls at this time of year on campgrounds.
Great.
So whether it's the 4 federal agencies or the 3 state agencies or Maricopa County or the City of Phoenix, we have it all. It's pretty much one-stop shopping.
That's great.
We also carry licenses, hunting and fishing licenses, and duck stamps.
Good. And it is open to the public, so people can
Yes.
just walk in, get all the information that they want.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much, both, for being with us. As you can see, there are many ways to enjoy the desert mountain parks. We hope you've learned something that will help make your outdoor experience a positive one. And remember, use care and common sense. Wear appropriate clothing and shoes, and bring water. Know your ability and choose a trail you can handle. Stay on the trails and don't run downhill. If you find yourself in a difficult situation, stop, think, observe, and plan. Report emergencies to 911. Know the location and nature of injuries. Take extra precautions for young children. Infants should not be carried on your shoulders or in your arms. Use a good quality pack. Keep dogs on a leash and pick up after them. And know the rules on park use. For Phoenix 11, I'm Sherry Hildebrand, wishing you a safe and fun-filled journey.